Welcome to the show. My name is Karen Holton. I am an ET experiencer and ambassador, an ascension coach, a direct channel, a shamanic guide, and I'm the host of Aliens and Astrology. Be sure to check out more of my unique content on my website, www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com, and my YouTube, Odyssey, and Telegram channels, Karen Holton TV. I can also be found on the Forbidden Knowledge News Network, www.forbiddenknowledge.news. My paranormal experiences have taught me to replace my beliefs with working theories, which evolve over time. My co-host is Dave Petrella, and although we hold two different viewpoints, we both see things from the same broad perspective, and we are both passionate about the ascension process.
Hi, I'm Dave Petrella. I'm an astrologer, biologist, spiritual guide, and Oak Island theorist. You can find me on Facebook and YouTube at Dave Petrella, and on Instagram at Dave Petrella12. Please feel free to send me an email through my YouTube page. I'm happy to join Karen in our search for truth. We can find the answers we're looking for about health, science, extraterrestrial intelligence, and many other related topics. We're glad to have you join us today for the show.
Hi, everybody. Dave and I are back for another show, and today we're going to talk about self-healing. So Dave and I, we don't necessarily do everything the same or follow the same programs, but we both have a unique outlook and way of dealing with our health and our well-being. And of course, we're both very passionate about the ascension process, which also includes a healthy lifestyle so we can hold the frequencies. And we just want to talk a bit today about, our experiences and the way we approach health and healing. And some of the things I want to cover in the show today is self-healing, using food as medicine, the problems with the allopathic model, and fasting and things like that. Please feel free to put questions in the comments below, and David or I or both will get back to you with our responding to your comments. And so that's pretty much what we're going to do on the show today. And again, for those of you who are new to the show, Dave comes from an astrology background, but more than that, actually an astrotheology perspective. And I've had all kinds of experiences with aliens and other beings not of this world. And so my perspective is influenced by that. So today we're going to talk about self-healing. And I also want to just throw in here that Dave and I are not giving medical advice. This is not to be construed as medical advice, because there's no replacement for you going to a qualified practitioner with your health issues. This is information that we want to share with you. These are our experiences that we want to share with you, but please don't take this as medical advice, because it's certainly not meant to be. So I'll just start off a bit with some of my discoveries around health and well-being and healing. And one of the most powerful things that I have found is using my food as my medicine. And this was originally a concept introduced to humanity by Hippocrates about the 500. Dave, do you know when Hippocrates was around? I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact date, but around 500 in our common era, or maybe before that. Do you know, Dave, when
It might
Hippocrates was?
it might have been BC, Karen. I'd have to look again. But
Yeah, it might
he's,
even be BC. So we're talking thousands of years ago. He said, let your food be your medicine and let your medicine be your food. And so how I came to self-healing was through horrible circumstances where I was suffering so terribly. I was willing to do anything. And I loved the whole concept of let my food be my medicine. So what I did was I only have in my home foods that also double as my medicine. So that means that if I decide, late at night, I really want some chocolate cake, there's no way I'm going to walk down to the store trying to find something open. I'm just kind of a little bit lazy that way. So I would just eat what I have in the home, and I'm very careful what I have in the home. Dave, what's your idea on food as medicine?
Well, actually, Karen, it's pretty amazing because I literally have a bumper sticker on my car that says "food is medicine." And my friend, one of my best friends from high school, bought it for me when we were touring California. This was probably about 2014, I think. We kind of went up the entire coast of California, starting in Los Angeles, and actually all the way to Alaska, where I was working that summer. And we were in, I might have been Mount Shasta, actually, which I just went back to about a week ago, a week and a half ago. It's a really great town. And that mountain, I went hiking on that mountain for the first time, and I have to say that despite all the stories about, portals and strange energy and stuff like that, I felt nothing but positive energy. There was actually nothing strange at all to me. Maybe that's my experience perspective. But again, we've talked about this a lot. It's you really want to try to get that firsthand perspective. You can read about it, you can get other people's testimonies, but you really have to get up there yourself if you can. And now every time I talk about it, I feel very confident and sure, basically, that what I experienced was, I can count on that kind of experience if I went back. It was just great energy there, great energy. So yeah, he bought me a bumper sticker, a green bumper sticker, and it says "Food is medicine." And way back, me and him were talking about kind of how I approach the food topic, and it does involve fasting. It also involves, of course, moderation, how much you're eating. You can eat a lot of, I mean, like, so let's just say you're vegan or something, you can eat a lot of vegetable products and like grains and things. But at a certain point, actually, the calorie load, in some ways, regardless of what it is, it will affect you because all the time that you're spending digesting the food, all that energy, it could be going to actually healing. And when the stomach is
Mhm.
full, the healing is generally minimized. You have to actually, you have to be very careful about this. There's proper ways to do fasting, but you don't necessarily really want the stomach to be full at all. It's actually kind of the idea of the real healing, even from the East, is that it has to shrink. And when you hear the stomach grumbling, it is actually shrinking. Um, and if you kept it going and you knew what you're doing, again, it's not medical advice. You have to work with it yourself. But my experience has been that I actually start feeling better and better and better. And I look in the mirror and I look healthier and stronger and younger and all these things when I'm fasting. If I go over 500 calories a day, I forget it. It's not gonna kick in. The true healing mechanism, it really requires you to get really, really low on that so that your body can when there's nothing in the stomach, it starts to pull from your other organs and it kind of starts to leach out the toxins that have been stuck, especially the fat soluble toxins that have been stuck
Mhm.
in your internal organs probably for most of your life, 20, 30 years. It's stored in that fat. The fat can't get out. The fat can't get out because it can't be metabolized because you're always eating. And the body's not going to go to your fat stores in your organs until your stomach's empty, which is kind of the real key of the fasting process. So yeah, I've always believed that, Karen, that food is medicine, and at least it should be. And one of the first things I did way back in 2008, when I was having a series of health challenges, is I said, all right, so if it's not growing from a natural plant, or if it's not, and I don't hunt, but I know some people do, and I don't really have a problem with that as long as you're being respectful and you're giving thanks for the food and that you use all of the animal and everything like this. I also
Mhm.
believe it's a contract between you and the animal, and I believe there is an exchange of energy and spiritual things are happening, possibly karma and things
Mhm.
like that. That's actually a really interesting topic, but regardless, or despite that, I would say that if you can't get it from the forest or from the land or from the natural world, and I'm talking like, don't touch it at all. We shouldn't be making corn kernels bigger just because we want more food or because we like it or whatever. And I actually, when I was in New York, this was part of my research that I was doing with the LDS or the Mormon Trail.
Mhm.
It's called the Sacred Grove. This is where Joseph Smith had his vision behind his childhood home. And there's a apple orchard there. Supposedly it's been there for a very, very, very long time, and they're supposedly heirloom apples. And I went over there, and yeah, what? Some of them have a little bit of rot. Some of them have maybe a worm or two that got in there. I don't care. It never hurt me, and I just remove the part that I can't eat, and then
Mhm.
or that I don't want to eat, and then I have the rest of it, or I find a new one, or whatever. And then the deer, they actually eat the ones that are on the ground, and I watched them do that one night. It was just me out there with the deer, and they were eating the ones that maybe had some rot or that they had some worms, and it doesn't bother them. So, and it doesn't hurt them either because I watched and they're
Mhm.
very healthy. So yeah, the food idea is that, and actually back to Hippocrates because it's a really important point. I used to bring this up all the time, but he also said that the dose makes the poison, which means the amount of the food, and especially if you're not combining different food sources. For instance, if you eat a pizza, even though it's not let's say a pizza with like some meat and vegetables on it. I'm not saying it's the most healthy food, but I am saying that it is. They kind of counterbalance each other. You've got the meat, the
Mhm.
grain, the dairy product, the vegetable, and what ends up happening is that like if you're too alkaline or too acidic, the other foods will kind of bring it back into line like that. You want to be kind of down the middle like that because the
Mhm.
acid the acid will perform work in your body and the alkalinity will strip the excess from your body. You don't want to be actually too far on either end. Ideally you want to be in the middle. So
Mhm.
you have to know which foods to use for what specific thing. And the way I figured that out is I actually took 2 years in 2008 to 2009, and I kept a journal for literally 2 years. And what I would do is I would fast for probably like 18 hours, maybe almost the whole day. And then I would, whichever food was up next for essentially an experiment, I would cook that food. Sometimes I would eat it raw, depending on what it was. And then I would just wait and watch what happened. And since my
Yes.
instance, exactly, Karen, and since my stomach was completely empty at that time, I got the full effect of that food. And then
Yep.
every time, if whatever that food did to me, if I want to have a little bit of that experience, or if it made me feel better in a certain way, now I know that I choose a specific food to make something specific happen. And that's actually technically what's happening with food all the time. We don't really know that because
Yep.
most of what we eat are meals which have multiple components to it.
Yeah. I have a couple things I want to add. Is now a good time to
Oh yeah,
interject?
yeah,
I
no,
don't
I'm
want
good.
to interrupt you. Okay, I had a very similar experience, and it was part of now my spiritual awakening didn't all happen at once. I've had sort of levels of spiritual awakening throughout my life, but at one point I had been a very heavy woman, over 320 pounds most of my adult life. I tried everything. I tried every diet. I went to the doctor. I even took pharmaceuticals. I did everything. And all of a sudden, I had this a new level of a spiritual awakening, and I couldn't eat at all. I became super sensitive to toxins in my environment, in my personal care products, but especially the toxins that were in food. And it was like a huge slap in the face because suddenly I couldn't eat. I just couldn't eat. I lost about 80 pounds in 2 months. Now, I don't recommend anybody else do this. I'm just saying this was my journey. This is what happened. But when I did go to eat something, I would put it in my mouth. And before I even mouth digested or swallowed the item, I was acutely aware of how it was affecting me. And especially foods like sugary treats. And what really surprised me, Dave, is as soon as I put a sugary treat in my mouth,
Mhm.
It actually stimulated my genitalia. And I was shocked. I had no idea that food can make you horny. Well, actually, those are not even foods, those are food-like substances. The other thing I realized is when I did eat something that resonated with me, I felt it and I felt better. I felt grounded. And I went through a very similar experience for a couple of years. I also had the added blessing of suddenly having cancer symptoms in my lymphatic system. And I went to the doctor and I went and had some tests, and the doctor was freaked right out and said, you need to get into anti-cancer protocols right away. I'm going to book you in with a surgeon. I'm going to book you in for chemotherapy, and I'm going to book you in for radiation. But there's long wait lists, and so you're going to have to wait. It's going to be 3 months before we can get you in to see the surgeon. That's who we're going to schedule you to see first. I said to the doctor, stop. She said, why? I said, because you're scaring the hell out of me. I walked out of that clinic and I never went back, but I did talk to my higher self and the universe and what I understand as God. And I said, you know what? I got a deal. I said, I got a deal with you. Rather than me having cancer or not having cancer, how about if I floated out that both possibilities could be real or could be true, but I'm not going to buy into either or. I'm just going to go with it. And at that point, I got amazing spiritual direction on what to eat and what not to eat. And at that point, I started eating exactly like what you said, Dave. I started only eating foods that made my body feel good. And so I did that. And 3 months later, I went to see the surgeon. I did keep that appointment. He says, I can't explain it, but you have no cancer symptoms whatsoever. Now, I had huge growths under my arm that were big enough that it hurt just to relax my arm by my side previous to this. But in 3 months, when I went to see him, I did other things too. I went for long walks, I did meditating, and I saw the surgeon and he says, no, you have no symptoms. There's nothing to operate on. And I never went back to that doctor again. And what was really interesting is, we all like love and attention. When you get a cancer diagnosis, oh my God, you get tons of sympathy and empathy, and you get rides to appointments. There's all these nonprofits that are set up to support you. And, it was tempting, to be honest, it was tempting because I'm a bit of a loner and it would be nice to have all that attention. I went, no, I had to recognize my own weakness. And I had to go, no, I am not needing that kind of attention. I'm not going to do it. And I'm not saying that people who have cancer diagnosis are looking for attention. I'm just saying how it all happened and happened for me. And so I know firsthand how curative real food is. And like Dave said, real food grows in the ground. It doesn't need a label. It might be labeled as broccoli or it might be labeled as cabbage, but you don't need a rundown of what's in it, especially if it's chemical-free and organic. Now, before I turn it back over to you, Dave, I have one other thing I really want to say. And that is that when people have a healthy diet and they figure, well, I don't eat junk food that often. So they eat really well during the week, but maybe on the weekends, they end up eating what I would call food-like substances. And they figure they're still doing a pretty good job. But the problem is food-like substances don't get digested because they're full of chemicals to keep it from going bad. So what you mentioned, Dave, about the apples that had some imperfections, I love apples with imperfections because that means the worms and the bugs are going to eat it. They know it's good food. But if it's a perfect looking, pristine row of apples in the grocery store and there's not a mark on them, I don't know. Why are the bugs not wanting to eat them? My guess is because they've been sprayed with fungicides and herbicides and insecticides or pesticides, and all those things are so toxic when it gets into your system. So there's that, but there's also the chemicals that make things last longer. Why? Because the bugs and the rats and stuff won't eat it. They know intuitively that it's toxic. And so when you eat something on the weekend that you, or even once a month that you think, oh, it won't hurt me, I have a really healthy diet, suddenly that's stuck in your gut. And the real food you're eating is no longer being digested until you've passed all of that out. And then the other thing, like what you said, Dave, is the body doesn't know what to do with these chemicals. So what does it do? It stores them in fat cells. Fat cells are like vacuoles, mostly made up of water, and they're there to protect us from toxins that will hurt our health and our vitality. And so what happens, and this was what happened with me, I was so overweight. It was called morbid obesity. That was the diagnosis of what I had. And that's why none of the diets worked. Even starving didn't work, because as soon as I ate, I was eating something that had these chemicals in them. And so, long story short, these food-like substances, they're not only toxic, they are adding to obesity, especially the diet foods and the artificial sweeteners and all of that stuff, and all the omega-6 oils, the seed oils that are so hard for us to break down. We get that all accumulated in our body, and it takes years to get rid of those toxic elements so that our body can just start functioning the way it was meant to function again. Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you and see what you have to say about all that.
Yeah, I agree 100%, really. You have to, your body well, actually first, the plants and animals, they generally always know. So if you're in an area and things look vibrantly healthy and there's lots of like bees and ladybugs and things like that, you're probably okay. In terms of like, if they want to be there, it's probably going to be good for you too. That's a really good indicator. The other thing too, actually, I wanted to mention something about when you said before you actually swallowed the food, you actually started to get a sense already whether it was good or bad. And I want to suggest kind of the reason for that is that the gums are very thin in the mouth, and the blood is right underneath the surface of the skin inside the mouth. So I fully believe it actually kind of just permeates through like an osmosis channel into your bloodstream directly when it goes into the mouth. And
Yeah.
so I have the same thing. So I know immediately if it's been processed, if it's toxic, before I even swallow it. And I feel it. I would also say I feel it in like the auric field, is that my field will be altered slightly depending on what I'm introducing into that. And so when you become kind of aware of that and sensitive to that, then you can decide which things are going to be okay, which things are not. Especially if you give it a long time, then you know literally everything. I mean, I know all of the brands in terms of when I'm local, that things that if I want to have something extra, I know which ones I can and which ones I will not have based on,
Yeah.
if it's essentially if it's real food or not.
Yeah.
But the issue with the food, I agree, is it's actually a lot of it is synthetic. It's actually really pretty scary. Even the
It
stuff that
is.
you think is like healthy, a lot of it's GMO. The gene structure has been changed, which in my opinion, my belief is that whoever people believe in, I'm just going to say as a general statement, let's just say God, creator of the universe, okay? But you can say, whoever that is for you, that it was created a specific way, and therefore I'm not going to touch it, because if it was created a different way, then it would be maybe better for us. But no, I don't feel that's the case. I feel that how it was created is how it should remain. And I also fully believe that with all this technology and things too, is I try to keep that to a minimum, because I don't want to see cell towers everywhere.
Yeah.
I think they're hideous. And I believe they're also dangerous in terms of the
Yeah.
EMF coming off of that. And it just destroys the environment. And like, it's just, metal doesn't go well with like organic material. It doesn't look look nice. It just destroys the skylines and all this stuff. So the more natural we can get back to, the better off we're going to be. And maybe what we have to
Yep.
do more of is do that in our local communities, and know who is growing our plants and our fruits and vegetables personally, and know, if people eat meat, know who, where that's coming from as well, how they treat the animals, what they feed the animals. It is totally true. I mean, I've had some of the best meat I've ever had was actually moose.
Mm-hmm.
This was in Alaska, and I had a friend that, you actually have to get, I think it's still this way, you have to get a ticket for a lottery in order to be able to hunt moose. There's only so many people per season that can go do that. So he got the
Mm-hmm.
ticket this particular year, it was about 10 years ago. And he went out and he got a fairly large moose, and, brought all the meat back and everything. And you can't sell it, but you can, give it to people.
Can
And so,
share. Yeah.
you're right. Exactly, which
Moose is
actually we should be
Moose is
doing.
one of my favorites. Moose is absolutely one of my favorites too.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you had it,
Yeah.
Karen. All right. So, it was the cleanest meat I've ever tasted. I felt vibrantly better after I didn't have a lot of it. It was a very small amount. I felt
Mm-hmm.
amazing afterwards. And
Mm-hmm.
the same thing can be said for, I think it was silver. Maybe it might have been a king salmon. I can't remember. It was either king salmon or silver salmon. There's several varieties up in Alaska, but my friend again caught this fish, probably 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes max before he brought it into the kitchen. And then we actually, cut the meat at that point, and I guess maybe pan-seared it or something. And again, the cleanest fish I've ever had in my life. And the natural oil, Karen, was out of this world, and
Yeah.
delicate, fine. There was nothing, no toxins. My field felt was really strong. Like you're saying, when it actually goes in the mouth before you swallow it, that's the first really indicator. Well, actually, your eyes kind of give you, and your nose might give you the first indicator, but it's all there for us. We just need to pay better attention, and we need to take back our own health, and we need to take back, how we grow things, and say, you know what? No, I'm not doing this. This is ridiculous. It's very clearly against what nature is intending for us. And whether,
Mm-hmm.
seriously, whether people believe in a God or not, no matter what, I go with the natural world. I mean, I'm a scientist, so if the system is set up in a certain way, it's obviously set up that way for a reason. And instead of me pushing against it, I try to understand it and I try to work with it. And when I do, I actually have the highest level of success every time.
Yep. Absolutely. So I also wanted to say something about, which is very similar to what you're saying, Dave, and that is that every piece, and I'm talking about non-toxic, organically grown, certainly not GMO, every piece of fruit or vegetable or nut or seed is a perfect delivery system for the nutrients that we need to
Mhm.
be healthy and happy. It really bothers me that, and I made the mistake in the past, when I had mood disorder symptoms, depression, anxiety, I did for a while go to the doctor and try the pills because these were supposed to help me. Nobody told me about food. But now I regulate my mood with food and a few plant-based medicines like tinctures. And there again, that circles back to what you said, Dave, about the gums being absorbing and being kind of the first stop or the first point where the body starts to assess what it is you have in your mouth. And I absolutely agree with that. And when I do use medicines, they're plant-based, like I said. So when you use a tincture, you put a few drops under your tongue and your body absorbs it right away and it starts working within your system. And so I think the mouth is a really important diagnostic tool that people could be using. And the other thing too is those food-like substances are not giving people the nutrients they use, and they've proven scientifically that they stimulate the area of the brain that gets stimulated when we use, or if we use, which I don't use, but if you did use cocaine or heroin. So a lot of these chemicals like MSGs that have tons of names, for them besides MSG. So you might not even know that they're in the food if you read the label. And that again is why we need to move away from processed foods, because they're just chemicals that get us addicted. And just like in the cigarette industry, if you addict a customer, you have a customer for life. So the same thing is going with, soda pop and chips and all these things. And even a lot of the foods that look like they're okay, like different cheeses and dairy products, if you really check out what's in there's other things that really wreak havoc with our digestive system. So our bodies are very complex, and we need nutrients. We need not just vitamins and minerals. We're always, told, that to supplement or to make sure we get enough vitamin C or vitamin D, but there's so much more in food. Food is actually what we call nutraceutical, which means it has healing properties. So those healing properties come from perhaps the tannins or the other naturally occurring chemicals within the foods. The color, the pigment, has tremendous healing and curative properties. And so what I've done in my life up to this point, but I am actually changing my routine because I do want to start doing more fasting. I do intermittent fasting, but I really intuitively feel like I need 3 or 4 days without food to get a handle on my healing. We're going to talk a bit more about inflammation too in a little bit. But basically, I needed to learn what resonates with my body, what makes me feel good, not just physically, but also spiritually and emotionally. And so I got to the point where I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And if you, the viewers, are getting to the point where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, it's time to try something new and switching to real food. And again, I love what you said, Dave, about meat. I don't think it's wrong for people to eat meat. I don't think it makes me more spiritually evolved if I'm a vegan. I don't believe that. I think we have all different kinds of body types. We come from all kinds of genetic backgrounds. We have different blood types. Those of us, like, for instance, if you were living in the north of Canada, up in the territories, you would basically have very little access in a natural way to fruits and vegetables, but you'd have lots of access to meat and fats that contain all the vitamins and minerals, because the animals they're eating go out and eat things like algae and things that make that part of their constitution. Now, if you go and look at someone who's perhaps from the Caribbean or the Hawaiian Islands, they would eat a lot more fruit and vegetables because perhaps the protein sources are not as abundant. So I don't think there's only one way of eating, but there is a way that really makes sense. And so basically, we want foods that are not from factories, not from farm factories. We want to eat foods that are as natural and clean as humanly possible. I live in Alberta, Canada, and what's interesting here is we have quite a few meat markets. You might have to travel an hour and a half to a town that has one, but they offer humanely raised and grass-fed beef and also pastured pork and completely free-range chickens and chicken eggs. The difference is just incredible. Not only do you eat less, but it doesn't cost any more than if you went to Costco. I was in Costco on Saturday. I was looking at the price of rib steaks, and they're more expensive at Costco than they are at these, what I'm just going to call more humane meat market, or, ranches that raise the clean animals. So the animals not only have a really good life, but they're killed quickly and humanely. And then, we have access to those meats. So, it's just so, I believe it's so important. So the other thing too is some of you may have heard of a drug called Adrenochrome, and I don't want to get into it because it's beyond the scope of the show today. But when we eat animals that have been raised in horrible conditions, and then they're frightened and starved and not given any water or anything a couple days before they're slaughtered, they're frightened. They're all corralled together. They have no food, they have no water, they're uncomfortable, and they're terrified. And then they're killed in ways that don't even necessarily end their life in a hurry. We're eating that, and we're getting that adrenochrome from the meat, but we're also getting the fear and the karma from that meat. And so if you're going to eat meat, I agree, fresh salmon or fresh seafood or humanely raised animals, or better yet, if you know someone who goes hunting, don't be afraid to try wild game. And generally, what has happened from a native perspective is the animals that get killed are usually not the smartest and the strongest. So it does add to a bit of a natural culling process, just like if a lion goes out, it doesn't go after the fastest and strongest of the beasts it wants to eat for dinner. It picks off the old, the sick, and the weak. And so that's another concept to put in there about our choices of food. What do we want to eat? What do we not want to eat? And that's about all I have to say about food at this point. I'd like to talk about some other things, but first, Dave, do you want to add anything to the discussion?
Oh yeah, definitely. One of the first things I want to address really quickly, and this would actually be maybe a good topic for another show, Karen, because there's a lot in this topic. But the fact that, I mean, technically, for the most part, apart from, I suppose, fruits, and possibly nuts, I guess, like eating food requires something to die, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're harvesting the seeds, it's one thing, but I think if the plant could speak, it would probably say, no, I want those seeds because I'm trying to make more of me. So
Mm-hmm.
don't take the seeds, or
Mm-hmm.
if some plants, the really smart ones, in my opinion, it's actually the fruits generally is they taste really good so that they're eaten by animals, humans, what have you. And then when the organism removes that from the body, it's actually the seed inside of the fruit is what's supposed to happen is it's supposed to have natural manure. And maybe that animal traveled 30 miles. Well, the plant just got a free ride, and now it can
Mm-hmm.
have its next offspring 30 miles down the road, and it didn't have to do any work except make it pleasant for the organism to eat it. It's absolutely genius.
It
Um,
is.
but I do believe there is actually a dimensional issue with the fact that on this planet, it sure seems that usually eating food requires some kind of death.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always had a problem with that since I was probably 3 years old. We can definitely talk
Mm-hmm.
about that in the future, but I believe that's a function of a lower dimension, actually. And I teach, I'm sure aware, Karen, when we did shows on cosmology in the past, that I teach that the Earth is a mid-level dimension. It's right in the middle. It's called Midgard, in the Norse mythology, which means middle garden. And the word Earth is the same letters as the word heart, and the heart is, of course, in the center. So all these things, and we were talking about etymology, Karen, a little bit before the show, and that's you can learn. I mean, in some cases, almost everything from the word origin. You really can,
Yeah.
and how it passed between languages and things, and about what the original intention was, maybe how that was changed when it got passed through languages. It's really mostly there. And actually, again, Santos Bonacci, my friend, he taught me about etymology and how important it was, and how you could find most of the hidden meaning actually just in the word. And especially if you
Mm-hmm.
know multiple languages, then you really have an advantage in terms of figuring that out. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I just wanted to make that comment that there is, in my view, there's an issue with the death component having to do with, you something has to die a lot of times for you to be able to eat, and I actually don't agree with that at all. But that's how it seems to be right now on this planet. So I work with I always work with what I have, and I always shoot for better and for higher. So for me, I actually do feel better with very small amounts of meat, and I mean very, very small. Maximum at any given time, 4 ounces is plenty. It's like about a quarter of a pound. That gives me all the B
Mhm.
vitamins I need and some of the extra oils and things. I don't. If I have more than that, I actually feel worse. That's true. But just
Mhm.
to get that initial little bit of it with the animal components, it really does help me. It really does for my body type. Okay, so then I wanted to mention something really cool actually, and you may have seen this, Karen, but some people they actually eat for their chakras, which means that you
Yes.
have the 7 color. Okay, so you have seen this, great. So the seven
Yes.
colors of the chakras, and
Eat the
basically whichever,
rainbow every day.
right, right.
Yeah.
And this is the natural rainbow. It's not the popular candy that says that, of course.
No.
So it's a really interesting concept. I haven't done a lot with it, but I think it's really cool. If you feel like you need attention in the first chakra, eat some red foods, or if you feel like in the sixth chakra you want to eat some like dark blue foods, if you could
Mhm.
find them. I guess blueberries would be the only one I can really think of right now. Um, so that's that's one. It's a cool idea that you can actually try if that interests you. And I don't know for a fact that works that way, but I totally support that, and I think it's really beautiful. It's a really beautiful way of looking at food. And then the other thing I want to say is that you had mentioned the delivery system, and this is a really important topic
Mhm.
because, again, and of course, as I had mentioned as well earlier, that it's everything's been created a certain way for a certain reason in its natural state. And well, like the seed I was talking about with the fruit, that's one example, is that that's made so that it actually gives nutrients to the animal. It's attractive to the animal, and then the animal does a service for the plant. And so it becomes a symbiotic relationship, which is really what you want for everything in the natural world. And then everything will cycle with each other, and recycle and support each other, which is it's a really ideal system. So when it comes to, for instance, a good reference point for this would be like supplements. I'm not a big fan of them because I believe in eating the actual food. Again, how it
Yes.
was created. And and I've had problems with this in the past, having too much fruit juice. And of course, I'm not doing really what was intended with the fruit. I'm supposed to actually eat the flesh of the fruit as well. I get the juice part of it, but I also get a lot of fiber with that to
Mhm.
temper the sugar, basically, and some of the other components in the fruit juices. There's lots of what I would call like natural latex in fruit juices, and sometimes that can really kind of it can compete with your blood structure. And so I've had a lot of dealing with that in terms of the fact that I love fruit juice, especially pineapple juice and apple juice and pear juice and peach. Those are my top four. But actually it doesn't help me at all. And even if I have
Mhm.
like 2 ounces of pineapple juice, I actually feel better before a lot better before I do that. But everyone has to see for you. Do you feel better or do
Yeah.
you feel worse? And so do that. What I would say is like I would recommend doing if you can, and you can do it healthy in a healthy way, and you're strong enough, and by all means talk to your doctor first. But if you can do like an 18-hour fast, then just have that one food and just see what happens. You can do it
Yeah.
with you want to do like 2 months with just juices. I've done that before, and pick a
Mhm.
different juice every day and watch what happens. And some of them are not going to work for you, is what I would say. Some of them work great for me. Some of them don't work at all for me.
Mhm.
Um, so that is true. And the other thing is that there's also, in terms of chemistry, there's also catalysts that are within the foods. And so there's things that will engage the other component of the food, but if they're separated, they don't engage each other. And then it just sits there and your body doesn't know what to do with it. Because
Yeah.
again, we're moving away from the natural state, which is to eat it, in my belief, in its whole state. And
Yep.
that's when you're going to get the true reflection of how it's really supposed to be, and you'll generally feel the full effects. And the last thing I want to say about this is that it is true, however, though, and again, I'll go back to Hippocrates for a second here, that if you have too much of any one thing, you're going to be in trouble.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
used to have a lot of whole milk, good quality whole milk, and it wasn't until I had been doing that for like 5 or 6 years, and then I finally realized that so much of that had been stored in my body that it wasn't engaging anymore. So I gave it like three, usually for me about 72 hours, 3 days. All of the surface components of that got filtered out of the body after 72 hours. And then I had probably like a sip of it, and I felt it immediately, and I felt it helping me immediately. And before I did that, I would have like a whole glass and I felt nothing, because you have to give your body time to filter out anything you're putting in too much of excess. You're going to have an issue with that. Now let's give you one more example, because this is actually from last night, and this was a really good experience for me, and it reminded me of something I discovered 10 years ago. I had some, it's called ginger beer, and I've never had this before, but I know a lot about ginger, and I've had some success with actual ginger root, the real plant, in the past. So I wanted to see, of course, what would happen. And I had the opportunity to actually have another one. And for everyone, I finished my trip finally. It was a 100-day trip, and I'm in the Pacific Northwest now, and I'll be here for a little bit. And so it's nice to not be driving every day. I'm going to have a lot more time with the Facebook group and to get back to everyone. So I'm really looking forward to that. So anyway, last night we were, I was sitting outside with my friend, and he actually had asked me if I wanted another ginger beer, and I said, you know what, I'm maxed out on the ginger right now. And I felt it, because check this out, Karen. I had the first quarter of probably the first 4 ounces, the first quarter of that can. I felt really good. I mean, I felt fantastic. And then as I kept drinking it, I actually felt nothing. So if I had, say, in the future, and again, like I said before, the dose makes the poison. So what I tend to do is that once you feel the beneficial effect, I generally recommend stopping. Don't assume it's going to get better if you have more of it.
Yes, more is not better.
Yeah. So when it kicks in, whatever I'm trying to do, when it engages, then I actually stop and I let it work. And then you can see, maybe it's actually a good way to see it, is that once it's done working, even if you just have like a sip or a small piece of whatever you were eating, give it a little time before you do that. Have a very small piece, and if it doesn't kick back in, then the way I describe it is that you've reached your concentration limit in the tissues of your body, which means that once your body's fully saturated, it won't engage that particular component of that food again until it's been flushed out, or until it leaves the system. And I found that to be true literally with everything, including some people, there's different things that people smoke. I'm not advocating one thing or another, but it includes things that are airborne, that go into the body, foods, liquids, medicines, everything. It's all chemistry. I mean, I do a lot with biochemistry and physiology, and it's like a chemistry lab, and you just have to figure out how you have to figure out how your lab is structured, and you have to figure out how to work the instruments properly. And once you can do that, then you have a serious advantage, and you can really work with nature instead of fighting against it.
Yep, I agree 100%. Dave, let's go to the commercial break. And when we come back, let's delve a little bit into inflammation. What is it? What causes it? What to do about it? And so stick around, folks. We got more to the show, and we're just going to take a short commercial break now. Don't skip over this brief commercial break. Dave and I have some important information for you. You may have noticed that participation in our community does not depend on memberships or donations, and we do not hide our episodes behind a paywall. We want everyone to have the opportunity to learn and share our important content with others. Dave and I both offer services which may make your journey more fulfilling, and I offer some products as well. Our sales and services are what provide us with the means to continue our work, as there are many expenses associated with our mission. Check out our offerings to find that which resonates with you to help create a win-win situation. What I mean by that is financial support to help cover our expenses, but also some great products and services to give you that edge that you've been looking for. Check out my online shop, www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com, to find Zendome's orgone generators, comfort crystals, and an array of vital services, all designed to help you to become the change that you wish to see in the world. Now, more than ever, people are awakening to a world we never imagined possible. In response, Dave and I are offering tools, methods, and podcast content to assist you with your awakening process. You are not alone, and there is still much we can do to support our health, emotions, and our spirituality. We both combine ancient wisdoms with cutting-edge technology to help bring comfort to your body, happiness to your mind, and joy to your spirit. To assist you with your life journey, check out my website and find many valuable resources. There's the 9 Steps to Quantum Health Transformation. This is a free, comprehensive online course. Learn about detoxification and nutrition, grounding and spiritual practices, and an advanced version of the Law of Attraction, giving you more of what you really want out of life. I also have my Zendome's Orgonite, which is my unique brand of orgone generators. They're ethically sourced and handmade by a friend of mine, and they're double charged for maximum effect. I also carry comfort crystals, which is a limited collection of energetically infused semi-precious stones. I have an array of vital services so you can get the one-on-one support that you've been looking for. Also coaching, guidance, and I do assessments and also workshops. And then again, there are the many free resources available on my website. Wisdom to assist with energetic ascension into physical, mental, and spiritual paradise. Also, check out Dave's services. Dave can teach you about astrology and spiritual concepts, principles of Eastern medicine, birth charts, relationship matching, spiritual guidance, fasting, and his unique approach to health. You can find Dave's services on his Facebook page, Instagram at Dave Petrella 12, and his YouTube channel. The links can be found in the description box below. Let us share our quantum work with you. It's your turn to heal, evolve, and thrive. Believe in your ability to succeed. Now, let's get back to the show. Okay, so before the commercial break, we talked quite a bit about food as medicine, how to tell what foods are working well for us, how much, when to take it, and a bit about fasting. And now we're going to talk about inflammation. Now, a lot of our natural healing comes about in the body through inflammation. And what inflammation does is it speeds nutrients and healing components and blood to the area to help us with healing. But what happens, most people go, oh my gosh, this doesn't feel very good. I don't like this. They go to the doctor and they start taking anti-inflammatories. So the first thing I want to say is my reason for not giving all my faith to allopathic medicine, which is also mainstream medicine, is when I go to the doctor, they just want to shut down the symptom. They don't trace why I'm having the symptom. What is my core issue? What's going on that is producing the inflammation that, again, is creating the discomfort? Because the original problem may not even be detectable. The only way we know it's happening is through the inflammation. So we start taking anti-inflammatories, which cause all kinds of other issues. And we reduce the inflammation and we stop our own healing process. So one thing I've noticed in my own life and in the life of other humans is that we don't like discomfort, we don't like pain, and we want to make it stop as soon as possible. But what if that discomfort and that pain is your healing process and you shut it down over and over again? Things are going to escalate because the body, the mind, and the soul are trying to give us messages so that we can do the right thing to aid and assist our own healing. Dave, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, the signs that your body gives you, it's always trying to tell you something. And it's actually rather amazing. You know, it's actually it's your best in some ways your best support system is actually your own signals that you get from your body. So if it's telling you there's an issue with something, then pay attention to it. And you know, I'll admit it's not easy to understand human physiology and how all the systems work, integrate with each other and work with each other. I learn something new every day, and I've been doing it for a very long time. And so there's lots of one of the things that I was thinking of, Karen, when you first started talking about this topic is there's lots of natural remedies for inflammation. I just want to put that out there. There's lots of things that if it was up to me, I would try first the natural approaches. I always do that. And actually, I always settle on a natural approach. I've never settled on a synthetic or a artificial approach at all. It comes directly from nature, or I just don't do it. And actually, if you know how to fast properly, then that in some ways will, you know, again, and you have to be careful. I have to be careful how I say this, but I fully believe if you do it correctly and you know what you're doing and you're exchanging your internal fluids and you're flushing out the old oils and you're putting in good oil, then it will solve everything. Literally, absolutely everything, including mental imbalances, inflammation, diseases, chronic issues. It's all within the Ayurvedic principles, which I've talked about many times. Um, that saved my life, and I had to figure that out myself.
Yeah.
So when I went to doctors, and I mean, look, I gave everyone a chance. I truly did. I went to doctors in multiple states with different degrees, you know, different good references and all this stuff. And I'll tell you what, not one of them mentioned anything to do with any kind of ancient Indian or Chinese medicine, which is actually now is the first place that I would send people. If I was sending someone to a doctor, it would be someone from an ancient Indian tradition or an ancient Chinese tradition. I would not
Yes.
send them elsewhere at all because you want to
Mhm.
try the natural approach first. They have ways that they can actually move your lymph fluid and the other fluids in your body with hands-on touch. Of course, there's the acupuncture methods, which stimulate your body to get action, you know, blood flow and other fluid flow to that area to help you, which you mentioned about, you know, inflammation, which is largely some ways why that happens, why you actually have the inflammation because your body's trying to heal that area, so it sends help. So, you know, just from my experience, I've actually personally, I've never had success with any Western approach to medicine ever, not one time. It's actually made me either dull or it made me sicker or it made me confused or had some cognitive effects or something like this
Yeah.
affected my sleep. So you know, I've never had an issue with fasting at all, really at all. But you have to know how to do it properly. There are ways to ensure a higher rate of success, I would say, and you have to know your body really well. That's kind of the key. You have to know your vital signs. You have to know what to look for when you're having success and when you're having some challenges. So anyway, back to the same concept that anything that's synthetic, made by humans, you know, I generally said no, not doing it. Just I'm not doing it at all. I actually here's one more example. So because I was so surprised by this in a very good way. But um, my friend actually has natural tobacco, and what he does is he buys literally an organic tobacco. He buys a whole leaf, so he buys the tobacco leaf and will actually make his own, well, roll that himself. And it has no chemicals on it. There's no pesticides, nothing like that. He had asked me actually. He says, "Is it going to bother you if there's some smoke that drifts by?" And I say, you know, just make sure it's, you know, not downwind basically when we're sitting talking. And it actually turned out, Karen, this just happened, by the way. I mean, I'm still learning things every day that can help myself and other people. And, as everyone probably knows, it's not a topic I shy away from. I talk about all of it. We need people to address and be participating in every topic. We need help in actually everything, every part of society
Yeah.
right now. So
Yeah.
actually, not only did it not bother me, but actually I did not feel like I wanted to necessarily get away from it. It felt like just a background. Okay. Think of it this way: if a wildfire struck like a tobacco field, that's I'm saying a normal tobacco field. That's a natural
Hmm.
process. It's a natural
Hmm.
process. So nature, I would strongly suggest, is not going to create some really toxic synthetic something just because there's a plant that's burning in
Hmm.
nature. That's not that doesn't help anyone really, ideally. So, but the point is that it's amazing how different that smoke coming from that tobacco is
Oh, yeah.
over literally anything I've ever smelled in my life. By the way, I used to work in the tobacco fields in Connecticut where I grew up. I don't know if I share that with you, Karen.
No, I
Um,
didn't know that.
so I know about everything that's sprayed on it, pesticides, fungicides, even the natural parts of the plant sometimes are pretty caustic. There's the tar that gets on your hands, the natural tars and everything like that. But my point is that I had actually never smelled a tobacco leaf burning that had nothing sprayed on it. And I could
Hmm.
not believe
The
how,
difference.
yeah, and I didn't feel bad at all. I wasn't inhaling it directly into my lungs, but I actually felt, I'm like, no, it's okay. I don't need to get away from this. It wasn't strong. It did not linger, and it did not stick on the clothing either.
Hmm.
Because, today I'm like, okay, there was smoke kind of around me. Well, no, not on my clothing. I believe that comes from the synthetics, Karen, that like it changes the
Oh,
structure,
yeah. Oh,
so
yeah,
it's
because
all there.
tobacco is a sacred sacrament to many indigenous cultures.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've actually, it's been suggested a few times when I talk to native tribes to bring a tobacco offering,
Yes.
to show them that you care, that you value, some of their belief system, and it means a lot to them too. And actually, I really understand that now, Karen. I really do. After that experience, this actually just happened, that I learned this about the real tobacco leaf. And I'm just and I'm not advocating smoking. Everyone needs to make their own choices for everything. The
Yes.
way I do things is the way I do things. The way Karen does things is the way Karen does things. I encourage people to choose positive practices for your life. Don't be choosing things that are going to hurt yourself or other people. But at the end of the day, there's so many tools that are available to everyone. And again, like at the end of the day, the most important thing to me is that the natural world is your cornucopia of
Yep.
food and of medicine. So if you want to look for something to help you, go out and find that. Actually, every native culture, and I've seen this a lot on my trip, I've read these plaques and these informational displays and everything, and it says that there's always something on the land that will help the native people of that part of the country or wherever they're at. And you just have to know. This was actually in Nevada, which is the part of Nevada, northwest Nevada. It's fairly stark, high desert. There's not a lot of plants at all, if any, sometimes. And but yet there's very specific plants that they use for very specific things, and as long as you know how to find it, it said that they thrive. You just have to
Hmm.
know your natural environment.
Hmm. I totally believe that too. Now, I just wanted to clarify my own opinion about cigarette smoking and other puffables. And that is number one, when people buy commercially prepared cigarettes and other puffables, there's all kinds of toxic waste that's involved, and you're inhaling that directly into your lungs. But the
I think
other
there's
thing that
Karen. I
happens,
think there's actually. I'm sorry, Karen. I think there's actually metal sometimes in
oh yeah,
these
well
products.
they even use radiation as an insecticide now. So there's that, and then there is the fact that people are smoking 20, 30, 40 cigarettes a day. That's a lot. So you add that, and then you look at the cigarette packages. And Dave, I don't know how it is in the States, but in Canada, they have these horrible, horrible graphic images that are
Oh,
actually photo enhanced to make them look even horrible. And then there's the suggestion that if you smoke, you're going to get whatever. And it shows people with their face is eaten away with cancer and gum disease, all these horrible things. Well, if you're a cigarette smoker for whatever your reason, and I don't judge because I used to be a cigarette smoker myself, and it's very difficult to quit. So if you're a cigarette smoker, the first thing I tell people is buy organic tobacco, and it is available. It costs more, but it is available. The second thing is make a casing for your cigarette box. In fact, you can have one casing that you can make yourself, decorate it. You can say, I love myself, I feel great, whatever positive thing you want to say, and then put your cigarette package in there so you're not getting that horrible, horrible suggestion. So those are just some of the harm reduction methods that I recommend to my clients that are concerned about cigarette smoking. And I wanted to just throw that in there. But tobacco itself is a sacred sacrament, and it's been used by Indigenous people for thousands of years, but it's not what we're buying at the store, you know, in commercially prepared and toxic. So I'm not at all surprised, Dave, that your friend that's smoking the real thing, and that's the whole thing. We got to get out of this artificial construct and back into the real thing. The real thing is here to heal us. The other thing that's amazing, I just want to switch back to food again, is the medicines that we need will naturally be growing around us. It's uncanny, but we have to know that's possible. And how I found out is I have a brother. I had 3 brothers. I now have 2. One of them actually, well, I won't get into that. But anyway, one of my brothers that I still have alive on this planet, he's studied edible and medicinal wild plants in British Columbia for years and years and years, an absolute expert. He knows the Latin name, the common name, what it's good for, what it's not good for, everything. So one day, his name is Dan. Dan and I were out and just hanging out, and we ended up walking into a field of weeds. And we were sitting there having a little chat amongst the weeds. And I said to Dan, we got to go. I'm starving. I need something to eat. And he said to me, open your eyes, Karen. And he got up and he started leaping around like a gnome from plant to plant. He said, this plant here takes care of inflammation. This plant here has 500 times the vitamin C of oranges that you buy in the store. This plant, that plant. And it opened my eyes and it blew me away when I realized this earth provides an abundance of nutrition, medicines, everything we need, but we don't know it. Much later on in my life, I fell upon hard times and I was going to the food bank. And here all these people, hundreds of them sometimes, were lined up to go to the food bank. And all around them were all these weeds that most people just spray with weed killer that would give them a superior nutrition and superior medicine, but they were all lined up to get cans of soup and packages of cheap macaroni and the kind of things you get at the food bank. Generally, the things you get at the food bank are very calorie high, but very low in nutrition and usually in a pretty bad state. That's probably a topic for yet another show. But my point is that, you know, if you can learn, even if you just pick one new plant a week and do some research on the weeds that are growing right around you and what they're good for. So as an example, this year, I had quite a few dandelions and I did some research and I found out about the incredible medicinal properties of dandelions. And I picked hundreds or thousands, I don't know, lots of dandelion, just the heads, because the heads are not bitter, they're quite sweet. The bitter is good for digestion, but I just really intuitively wanted to collect these beautiful yellow heads, which, by the way, correspond and support the yellow chakra, which is the solar plexus, but also I dehydrated them, and I have bags and bags of these dehydrated dandelion heads. So now when I feel like I'm coming down with a little something, I just make some of this beautiful dandelion tea. It's sweet. There's something about it that my body just loves. Getting back to what you were saying, Dave, about us getting to the point where we can recognize how what we put in our mouth is affecting our body. And I feel so good coming into cold and flu season, which, by the way, I haven't had for over 4 years. That I've got my medicine is ready. I grew it right in the backyard. I know it's clean and super cheap. Oh my God, nobody is ever going to charge you to go out and pick dandelion heads. So this is just one example. And so the healing of the people is here, but we've been blinded to it. And so I think the takeaway that I really encourage people to take away from this show and other shows that we do is how easy it is to actually heal, raise our frequency, feel better, and help us deal with this inflammation. And it's about as hard as falling out of bed, but you're not being told. This is one of the big forbidden secrets. And so we're being brainwashed and programmed to think that we have to go to these external allopathic medical sources when we really don't. So I'm not trying to tell people to do or to go or not go see the doctor. That's not my point. I am a firm believer that the doctors, the allopathic doctors, they are, I was going to say they're experts about human physiology, but the truth of the matter is they've been trained on dead bodies, which do not have all the subtleties and amazing connections and things going on in a live body. But still, I would go to the doctor just to hear what the doctor has to say. But I know my body, and then I take what I know, getting to know my own body and what the doctor says, and then I come up with my own solution. And often it's to not take the pills. And I'm not encouraging you not to take your medication. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm just saying in my particular case, no good came of it in the past. Absolutely no good came of it. In fact, I'm still detoxifying. I do detoxifying every day with intermittent fasting, but I'm now at the point where I'm ready to start actually fasting. And so I want to get back a little bit into that. I'm aiming for 5 days, but I'll settle for 3. I don't know what it'll be like until I get there. But what that does is it completely puts the body at rest. So all my energy can go into healing. All of my energy can go into reducing the inflammation because it's not needed now, because the body has everything it needs to thrive. And I really encourage people to experiment and find out for themselves, is this indeed true? Dave, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, that's great, Karen. I mean, I agree with everything you said. I do want to say that, well, I wanted to give an etymology reference in a second here because that's come up several times today, and I had something
Yeah,
that I don't usually have a chance to share that I did want to say something about.
sure.
But in terms of what you said, that yeah, by all means, go to your doctor is your good touch point, touchstone, whatever you want to call it. But then also look into it yourself. If you can do it safely and in a healthy way, then try to work with some of these natural products and see actually what happens. And that is actually good science, and that's what I'm always saying: is get your references from many different sources, independent sources that don't have like vested interests in successes or monetary things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then look at it all, compile the information, look at all of it together, and then figure out what you're going to do. You don't want like one source; you want as many as possible when you're trying to figure something out. And then I also wanted to mention, well, you'd mentioned the solar plexus, that is accurate what you said. That is the third chakra that's yellow, and it's essentially where the belly button is. There's a large bundle of nerves, nerve fibers bundled essentially, and a lot of people say that's actually where the primary energy enters the body through the belly button area. and we're talking vortexes, chakras, things like that. You're not going
Mm-hmm.
to necessarily be able to see this, but that's really the teaching. And then the energy that enters the crown of the head, the seventh chakra, that's really the high level divine information that's coming in. And really, there's energy that enters everywhere and exits everywhere. But that's kind of the way that I teach, is that the solar plexus is your power source, connection that actually keeps the body alive and moving. In terms of when you're taking energy from the environment, I would say generally the baseline energy is going to enter the body through the solar plexus. That's really the essential teaching behind that. Okay, and then I want to talk about this etymology really fast. Is that you actually had mentioned the word sacrament, which is one of my favorite words, and it's a very important word in all spiritual traditions. And then where does that come from? And I do again want to give credit to Santos Bonacci, because that's the first place I heard this, and he actually gave two examples. I agree 100% with what he had shared. And the word sacrament, it shows you again. It shows you about how the understanding of cosmology used to be, and how the understanding of the human body used to be, and it actually still is if we pay attention. But sacra is referencing the sacrum, which is the bone at the base of your spine, and ment is referencing, of course, your mind, mental state, mental structure. So sacrament together is talking about your spinal column, which, of course, as we know, or if people have watched some of my previous episodes and shows, that that's how cosmology is structured in our solar system. The spinal cord, or the which contains the seven chakras. Seven chakras. I teach is more above the head too, and more below the first chakra as well. But the primary seven make up, that's your sacrament right there. It's the
Mm-hmm.
sacrum to the ment, the sacrum to the mind, or to the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one, just to show you that it wasn't a one-off, is monument. And the first chakra, guess what planet governs the first chakra? Of course, it's the moon.
Moon,
That's
right.
that's where that comes from. So it's the same. The mon, when you say mon or sacrum or moon, it's the same part of the spinal column. It's the first chakra, and then ment, of course, is the same. So you can see that they knew what they were doing, and that's was one of the biggest things actually I discovered way back. I couldn't believe this, Karen. I'd never seen this before. That I just was a Google search one day for images, and I saw that each planet had a complementary chakra, that essentially
Yes.
they govern that chakra. Then it goes in order, of the solar system up the traditional solar system up the body. So all the information's there. We just have to, I think, pay a little bit better attention. And what's most important to me is that we have to work with it. Don't just let the information sit. Actually apply it to something. Otherwise, I'm interested in every topic, but if I can't actually enact something, in some ways, I mean, it is in my chart. It is in my birth chart. My ascendant node is Aries, so I always want to take action. If I'm not taking action, I don't feel satisfied or fulfilled in any way. But apart from that, and I recognize that, it kind of makes me laugh, because of course it's in my chart. Everything's in the chart. But the point is that actually, to have a successful society and to make progress as humans, you actually have to do stuff. You have to take some kind of action. So in that case, it's not just me. It's the fact that if you have good information, apply it to something that's going to help yourself. It's going to help people around you. It's going to help your society, and actually, even better, if it can help all three, that's really ideal at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree 100%. It goes back to that principle. If I do what's best for everyone else and leave myself out, it doesn't work. If I do what's best for me and leave everyone else out, it doesn't work. But when I do what's best for me and my community, then we start to see some amazing, amazing results. Yeah, we're going to have, hopefully, we're going to invite Santos to join us in December. And so I know you'll want to come back for that. We'll give you lots of heads up, let you know ahead of time that that's going to happen. Well, I'm hoping it's going to happen. We don't know for sure yet, but we're trying. That's what we're aiming for.
Yeah, and if you guys, in the meantime, I'll just say this really quickly, Karen. In the meantime, I do have a show with Santos. I was a guest on his show in June. That's at the top of my Facebook page. It's also on my YouTube channel if you guys want to see that. The man's a
Yes.
genius. I am forever grateful for him, and I struggle to find enough words to express my appreciation because he changed my life. It's what I needed. Actually, the thing I needed the most, and I mean, most people know me for astrology now, but the thing I needed the most actually was the information about biology that he shared. This is the esoteric information about the spinal cord fluid and how it carries the spirit through the body, carries consciousness through the body. That was what changed because I started from a biology perspective. And when I
Mm-hmm.
saw that and I started applying that to my own spiritual experiences, that actually turned out to be true for me.
Mm-hmm.
And again, looking at it as a scientific approach, but I had never ever heard that before. You're probably never going to hear that in the Western Hemisphere. You have to go to the East for that. And they've been teaching this for thousands of years. I don't know how much they do it now, but the texts are certainly available to look into that. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Santos, biology, especially the esoteric part of biology, of course, astrotheology, astrology, and the religious texts and the Bible specifically, and then all the great teachings and principles of astrology and sovereignty too. I mean, the man
Mm-hmm.
does it all, and actually go check out his channel too, guys, if you've never heard of him before. I believe it's called one is Syncretism Society, and I know his website's Universal Truth School. So he does weekly podcasts, if not more than one a week. He's always got great guests and everything. So go support him for sure.
Yeah, yeah, he's amazing. And he's also an amazing musician. He plays classical guitar. I have 4 of his CDs. They're just really, really, again, music. We didn't talk about that, but music also can affect your health and help you in so many ways. There's so many things we could talk about, Dave. The show could go on and on forever, but we're actually quickly running out of time. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks. We're now on a schedule. Dave's finished his travels and he's settling back down. And so we're going to do the show every 2 weeks. So you can look forward to more episodes of Aliens and Astrology. Now, before we go, Dave, is there anything else you wanted to say to the viewers before we say goodbye?
Well, I just appreciate everyone tuning in. Me
Mhm.
and Karen really appreciate the support. We're trying to kind of change the narrative here for a better future for society and for humans, for health, for understanding really everything. We
Mhm.
call the show Aliens and Astrology, of course, but at least from my perspective, I'll talk about any topic under the sun at all, anything that's going to be helpful and supportive to people. And you know what it is to actually, I'll just leave people with this. I really like Asian food, and the teachings, they're the highest level teachings that I teach do come from Asia, specifically ancient India. And I spent time with all of them, and that's always the one from ancient India. And so it's a funny story. I had a fortune cookie that got lost in my car, and I found it last night when I was emptying. I still have half of my car is still full, or probably maybe not quite half, but I found it and it was crushed. Of course, I have no idea where it was from or when I got it, and I was gonna have it last night, and then of course I fell asleep because I've been on the road for so long. So then this morning I saw it sitting, and again, this is something I believe was very purposeful. The universe wanted this to happen. Uh, I had put everything on the floor, and I actually thought I had buried it under like clothes and all kinds of other things that I'd had. And I woke up this morning and it was actually sitting right on top of the pile. And I actually don't remember that being that way. I actually thought it was buried. So I don't know how that happened. I'm not gonna even question that. It was pretty magical. But I opened it this morning, and actually what it said is something to the lines of that like a true leader actually helps others to empower themselves.
Mhm.
And that's my one of my big missions essentially is that I am so happy to support people, but ultimately we have to get people to kind of stand on their own. Believe in the power you have within, believe in your divine spark, and make things happen, really great things happen for yourself and other people. And I do believe that the more people we get, I think that's what it is, Karen, for me, is that the more people we get to get on their divine track, which may be different. Probably it will be different from mine and different from Karen's, which is I think it's great. We're all different people and at different spiritual points. But I really strive to get people to their best self, and it's not about what I want them to do. I mean, I'm always going to suggest, yeah, it's the fasting component, it's flushing the fluids. But if they want to do aromatherapy and sound therapy, those are both positive. I support that. I support whatever. And then, you know what? If down the line, it might be 5 or 10 years down the line, people say, okay, now I'm ready to flush the fluids out, then I'll be obviously here for that. I'll be available for that for people. My goal is to always be available to people, to help people. And of course, the podcast is a wonderful way to do that. And both me and Karen have lots of services available for everyone as well. If you're interested in signing up for any of that, let us know. We want to see the change, right, Karen? We want things to be
We
better in the
sure
world.
do. We
When we
sure
have
do.
to,
We want to
we all,
change, and we want to see that change. And
yeah,
so helping you all to come into your own sovereignty and power is the
right.
fastest and best way that we're going to have a new world, and we can bring paradise to this planet. All we have to do is stop the nefarious goings on and just let nature take its course. Everything we need is here. It's the most beautiful place to live. I love it. Absolutely.
Whatever we can do individually with our given skill sets, and you can develop other skill sets as well, we all have to step up in the way that we can best help. And I understand it's different for everyone. I feel privileged and blessed to be able to do it the way that I'm doing it, and with, of course, with Karen as well. But honestly, if it's mentoring a kid that doesn't have a family or something, that's amazing.
Mhm.
That's absolutely seriously astonishing that someone is willing to do that and finds truth in that. So go do that, or volunteer at like a soup kitchen or something, or like make coffee for people, or give it out for free, whatever it is. It's seriously, and sometimes like people are actually shocked just because someone interacted with them in like a positive way, and it
Mhm.
makes them think for like weeks, if not months on end. I've had a couple things. Well, actually at the Chinese restaurant, not the one that the fortune came from, because I ate that one at the restaurant actually, but it was a different one. And the waitress there, I actually was amazed that she had such positive energy, because out of all the restaurants that I had been to on my trip, not a huge amount. I mean, I don't eat a lot of food, obviously. Um, it just was amazing, the vital, positive, vital energy that this person had, and I was actually surprised because I don't see it a lot anymore. We have
Mhm.
to, if you're not given it genetically, that's a gift for some people, that you don't ever really have to bother with it, or filter your body out. You really have to kind of work for it, and you have to push a little bit outside of what you might want to do, and then let the universe guide you. It will always I believe it's always in your best interest, even if you have to go through some karmic challenges. The
Yes.
universe, it wants to see us succeed. So just stick with the path, and follow your heart, follow through with that.
Yes, I agree 100%. Couldn't have said it better myself. Now in Canada, we have Thanksgiving weekend, and that means a lot of things to a lot of different people. So I'm just going to say happy Thanksgiving. And what I mean by that is being grateful for everything that we have. We have so much, especially in this part of the world, North America. We have so much potential, so much to be grateful for. And that's what Thanksgiving means to me. And so I'm hoping you all have a wonderful what's left of your weekend, and the best week ever. And Dave and I'll be back soon, and we'll have more on aliens and astrology. Oh, by the way, if you haven't already checked out our Facebook group, we have an aliens and astrology Facebook group, and just some awesome talent, awesome podcasts, awesome information that you might actually enjoy. But for today, we're out of time, and I want to thank you too, Dave, for joining us again, and wish you all the best. I'll say bye-bye till next time for Aliens and Astrology. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining Dave and I for the Aliens and Astrology show. Become the change you want to see in the world. Subscribe to our YouTube channels, click the like button, and share this show with your friends. Check out Karen's website at KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com. All the links will be in the description box below. Until the next time, keep up the good work.
Well, you challenge my perception. I shift uneasily as as I try to justify how I value your suggestions. Ideas full of life when I'm empty of my own. And 5 minutes before I was okay, now the curtain drops to the floor. Leaves me weak and begging for more. When I think I get it, it flutters and vanishes away.